Bakadosh Boker Or, Masechet Gittin Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, 7a1. We're talking about that there were three things that a person has to say, benichuta, right? We brought down, first of all, the Mishnah and Shabbat, the entire concept of Shalosha Devarim, Tzarich Adam Lomar Betoch Beto, Erev Shabbat Im Chashecha, Serter Eravten Likot Haner. And then we said that we have to say benichuta. What does it mean benichuta? Nicely. In order that they should accept it from him. The Amar Ravashi says Ravashi, Ana lo shmiya lihad Rabbi Barachana. I never heard this memory of Rabbi Barachana. You have to say it nicely. But v'kiyamtiya misfara, I still did it on my own. Why? Misfara, I did it. Because at the end of the day, it's only a logic that you should say it nicely. Amar Rabbi Avu, says Rabbi Avu. Yeah, he says like this. Leolam, a person, right? A person should never put too much fear into their houses. He says, why? Shareh, right? Why? Because behold, Adam Gadol heti lema yitera. Yeah, there was somebody that placed lema yitera betoch beto in his house. Vechiluhu davar gadol, and they gave him a davar gadol. What does it mean, a davar gadol? He comes and he says, right? Davar gadol means, what is that? Right? Davar gadol means davar yisur, obviously. Umanu, and who is that? Rav Chanina ben Gamliel. Right? Rav Chanina ben Gamliel. So says the Gemara, Hechil shal kadaita. Do you really think that they gave him to eat something be'emet and yisur? If you're going to tell me now that we know that for tzaddikim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never bring them a takala through them. What does it mean, the takala through them? Meaning that there won't come a stumbling block through the tzaddikim. Obviously, if you look actually in the Tosafot, we're talking about only a dvar yisur of food, because a mistake could come out, but not of food, because food goes into their body and changes their essence. For somebody to make a mistake, it's very easy for a person to make a mistake, and everybody can make a mistake. We're talking about the food. So he says, if right now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to bring a takala to the animals of the tzaddikim, and then we're talking about the chamoro of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair and all these things, right, that they didn't have all these things, that they didn't eat things without which were tevel or all these other things. Tzaddikim atzmam lo kol sheken. Tzaddikim themselves, isn't it a kol sheken that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to bring a takala, right, al yadam? So answers the Gemara, la bikshu la'achilo davar gadol. They wanted to give him something which was davar gadol, right? Umani hu, what is that? Ever minachai. Meaning, because he put so much fear, right, in his family, what happened was they almost gave him ever minachai to eat, because he was so, basically over there was basically what happened is that from the servants of Rabbi Chanina, there was lost an ever of the bema of shenishchita, and because of the ema, they went and they cut a piece of the same thing from the live animal. They were going to give it to him without him realizing. But only why? Because he was, if they're too afraid of you, they'll come, they'll do certain things that it's not supposed to be doing. Okay? Fine. Shalach le Mor Ukva Rabbi Elazar. So Mor Ukva comes and sends a question to Rabbi Elazar. Bnei Adam omdim alai uv'yadi l'moser malchut. Mao. I've got the position. I've got people that they're coming and they're always bothering me. Yeah, mitzari moti. They come, they cause me problems. So can I come and give them to the malchut? And the malchut will come and will punish them. Can I do that or not? Wow, what's halacha? So sirtet, he did sirtut. V'katav le, and he wrote to Mor Ukva, Amarti eshmera derachai mechato bilshoni. I said that I should watch my paths, right, from sinning with my tongue. Eshmera lefi machsom. I'm going to watch it like a machsom, like a how do you call this machsom? Right, the machsom, right? So he says, be'od rasha lenigdi. When the rasha, machsom is like a muzzle type of thing, right? Yeah, be'od rasha lenigdi. When I have the rasha in front of me, and even though right now I've got a rasha in front of me, I'm going to keep quiet, like ki'ilu, that my mouth is like with a muzzle. Okay? So Shalachle, he told him, yeah, but they're bothering me too much. Right? I can't stand up against them. So Shalachle, he sent him, Dom la Hashem itchulelo. Keep quiet and Hashem will help you out. Dom la Hashem, v'hu yapilem lecha chalim chalim. If you just keep quiet and you're going to be Oved Hashem, right, with the Zricha ve'shkia, which means in the nets and in the shkia, right, what does that mean? Hashkem ve'arev alehen lebet midrash. Go to learn Torah. Ve'en kalim me'alehem, and they're just going to get rid of themselves. You don't have to worry about them. Meaning, if you go to the Bet midrash, don't worry about it. Yeah? Hadavar yatsa mipi Rabbi Elazar v'natznu legniva bekolar. What happened is that the words came out of the mouth of Rabbi Elazar, And immediately, Geniva, that was the name of the guy that was going against Marukva, he was placed in a kolad. He was placed in chains, right? Kilu, that they were going to kill him, which means that that's exactly what happened. That it came out of the words of Rabbi Lazar, boom. And they put now Geniva, by the way, was a big Tamil Chacham, but the Gemara actually speaks about it, but that he didn't have good midot. So for he knew a lot of Torah, but he didn't have good midot. So he was causing a lot of pain and suffering to Marukva, and because that Marukva was saying, like, listen, like, I don't know what to do with this guy anymore. Yeah, fine. So now it says like this: Shalchulem leMarukva. So they went and they sent to Marukva Zimra. Zimra are songs that they sing in the Bet Mishtaot. Menala de Asir. How do we know you're not allowed to sing these songs in the Bet Mishtaot? How do you know? Yeah. So he says Sirtet v'katav lehu. Again, he did Sirtut, and he wrote a pasuk in Hosea. Al tismach Yisrael el gil ka'amim, which means the Navi is coming and telling us from a pasuk in Hosea that a person should not be happy like the Simchat Ha'amim, which means En lanu nashir. We don't come and start singing in Batei Mishtaot, in all these places of Mishteh and all these things. We don't do these things. You know? I mean, we're not going to come and we're going to start singing. You know, that's Goyim do those things. We don't do those things. Yes, all these things. We don't do that. You understand? We're different than the Goyim. The Goyim is different. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, "V'lishlach lehu me'acha." Why didn't he bring him another pasuk from Yeshaya? Yeshaya says, "Bashil lo yishtu yain, yemar shechal leshotav." So it's mefurash yisur. You're not allowed to come and drink, right? You're not allowed to sing in a place of drinking, because it says, "Bashir lo yishtu yain." Whenever you're singing, right, you don't drink wine. Yemar, right? It should be bitter. Shechal leshotav, the ones which are drinking, right, for the beer and all those things. You understand? Sorry. So answers the Gemara, if it was going to be from the second pasuk in Yeshaya, Havavina, I would have thought zimra de mana. That's only going to be if you're going to be singing with a utensil. Aval de puma shari, but if you're going to be singing with your mouth, it will be permitted. Kamash Malan comes teach you that even singing with your mouth is going to be prohibited. Elmaleh Ravuna Barnatan Ravashi. So says Ravuna Barnatan to Ravashi. What does it mean in the pasuk? What does that mean? Elmaleh, he comes and he tells them, Matavata, right? Eretz Yisrael kachashiv, right? He's coming and he's bringing down the cities of Israel, right? So these are names, right, of the cities of Israel, right, which are the different places in Yehuda. So that's Kina, Dimona, and Adada. So Elmaleh, he comes and he tells them, obviously, you know that these are cities in Israel. Ela Rav Givia Me'argiza, right? But Rav Givia from Giza, Amar Ba'atama, he says, there's a darush in these psukim, in these names. He says, Kol sheyesh lo kin'a, that's the first one, kin'a. Anybody that's kin'a al chavero, right? That means he's got kas al chavero. Why does he have kas al chavero? Because of tsar or whatever it is. V'domem, and he keeps quiet. That's dimona. Dimona is domem. He keeps quiet. Shochen adead, which is adada. Shochen adead means oselodin. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which he's the shochen adead, he will come and do judgment to the person and will pay him back. Which means somebody causes you harm, and you keep quiet, and you leave it to Hashem. Hashem will take care of it. You don't have to worry about anything else. So Elmaleh, he comes and he says, Ela me'ata. So now we're going to bring another pasuk. The pasuk says, this is in Perek, right, in the same one there, and this is no, the other one was in the same chapter there in Yoshua, where it says pasuk lamed aleph, Siklag umedamna v'sansena. Hachanami, are you going to say the same thing? Meaning, if you're going to tell me that we're mentioning different cities of Israel, that you could come and start making a whole bunch of dirashot in the cities of Israel, so what, you're going to tell me the same thing here? Elmaleh, he says, if he would have been here, you're right, he would have also said something from there. Meaning that he was incredible at taking names and actually putting a play on words to show you how a person is supposed to act. Yeah, so if Rav Gavia from Agiza was here, he would have told you. So Rav Acham, right, Mibei Choza Amar Ba'achi. Rav Acham Bechoza came and he said like this, Kol mi sheyesh lo tza'akat legima al chavero, siklag is tza'akat legima, which means that somebody stole from him and he's taking away from his parnasah. V'domem, and he keeps quiet. Shochen baseneh oselodin. So the one of the shochen baseneh, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he's the one which is Shochen Basineh. Before it was Shochen Adead. Right? Ashkenazim actually have a perek that is Shochen Adead, right? Shochen B'marom. Right? So he says here it's Shochen Basineh. The one which is Shochen Basineh is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he was Shochen in the Sineh. He's going to do judgment for him, and he's going to take care of him. Fine. Next. Amale Resh Kaluta. Says Resh Kaluta. Right? We're talking about now things which are because of the Churban Abayit. So this entire concept of not singing, right, in the places of drinking is because of Churban Abayit. So now we're going to go to the next one. Kelila. Kelila is an atara that they used to do for a chatan. Menalanda asur. How do we know that it's asur for a chatan to wear a kalila bizman hazeh? So Amalei says midrabanan, right? The isur is only going to be midrabanan. The Tanam, as we learned in the Mishnah, we just learned this in Sotah, right? Memtet Amud Aleph. The pulmus shel Aspasianus. So in the time of Aspasianus, when he put a siege on Jerusalem to capture it, gazru al atarot chatanim v'alairus. They made a gezerah on the atarot chatanim and the airus, which means that they come and they're going to start, using different kli zemen for the, mishtaot and everything, and atarot chatanim. So you see from here that it was a gezerah from the rabbis because of the siege of Jerusalem. So from the time of the destruction of Bet HaMikdash onwards, right, you see you're not allowed to do these things. So during that time, Rav Huna, he went to the washroom. So says Rav Chassa to the Resh Kaluta, it's written in a pasuk, this is what Hashem, God said, Hasira mitznefet, take off the hat, and bring up the crown, zot lo zot, hashfala gbeah, right, v'gavoa hashpil. What does that mean? What's the concept of mitznefet? Mitznefet, even though it's a hat, it was one of the big keuna. What is that connected to the atara? The atara is a crown that anybody wears. So he says, well, 1 second. So he says, Ella, but not, I mean, not a Kohen, right? Yes. Ella lo malecha b'rado tzadmo. Bizman shemitznefet b'rosh Kohen Gadol. If there's a mitznefet on the head of the Kohen Gadol, then, right, atara b'rosh kol adam. So then everybody could put on an atara. Obviously, it was only chatanim that were, but it means that anybody could wear, right, a atara. However, though, nistalka mitznefet b'rosh Kohen Gadol, once there's no more mitznefet to the Kohen Gadol, nistalka atara b'rosh kol adam. So then nobody else could also wear this atara. Meaning the reason why you put them together in the same pasuk is to show you that as long as you have a Kohen Gadol, the chatanim then can wear the atara. If you don't have a Kohen Gadol, so then they don't put on the atara anymore. Okay, that's what we're trying to say. So during that time, Rav Huna comes back and he says he found them, they were sitting. Yeah? Elmaleh, he says, Elokim, midrabanan. Right? He comes and he says, I don't understand you. This is not Doraita. This is only midrabanan. It's a gzerat chachamim. Yeah? So he says, Ella chista shemach nechistain milach. But rather, even though, right, to do with your explanation in the pasuk that you just mentioned before, right, your name is chista, right, basically chasta, and your actions are chasudim v'na'im. They're very, very beautiful. Okay? That's what Rashi says in the Marsha. Fine. Ravina. Yeah, so it's not the same one. Yeah? He says like this. Yeah, it's fluffy on the top. Okay, it's fluffy on the top. Ravina ashkeche lemor baravashi. Right? Ravina ashkeche lemor baravashi. So Ravina went and he found Mor Baravashi, Dava Gadil Kilila Librate, that he was being kolea an atara, right, for his daughter. So Amalei, he told him, Lo savar lo mor, why you don't hold asira mitzvah varim atara? Amalei dumya de Kohen Gadol. Right? He says it's going to be domeh to a Kohen Gadol, which is begavre. Aval benashe lo, which means that the only isur is only on men, because men is compared to the Kohen Gadol. But he says, but if it's going to be talking about what? Talking about women, there's no isur. So therefore, even though he was able to make a kalila for his daughter, right? Why? Because it was only going to be a sur for the men and not for the women. My zot lo zot. What does it mean in the pasuk when we're saying zot lo zot? So Darash Ravina comes and he says, Zimni Ramala Mishved Ravami, sometimes they said the name of Ravami, Zimni Ramala Mishved Ravasi, sometimes they said the name of Ravasi, Veshasha Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? Veshasha Beshamara Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. When Kadosh Baruch Hu told Israel, Hasira Mitzvah Varim Atara, take away the mitznef and then bring up the atara. Zot, right? Which is lahem liYisrael shekdimu lefanecha b'Sinai na'aseh lenishma. This is what you're going to do to Bnei Yisrael that they went and they told you na'aseh lenishma. Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered them lo zot. Lahem liYisrael shepilu et hagavua v'gbiu et hashafal v'midu tzelem ba'Hechal, which means zot lo zot. The malachim came to Hashem and they said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is what you're going to tell them to Bnei Yisrael that they said to you na'aseh lenishma. So he answered, V'lo zot, and I'm not going to tell them something like this, that they went and they put a tzelem in the Hechal. You understand? That's the zot, lo zot. Right? Zot, mamash ata omer lahem. V'hem omru, zot ani lo agid lahem. Ze ani lo agid lahem. V'aday shani agid lahem et ze. Okay? Fine. The Rash Rav Avida. Rav Avida comes and he expounds. Zimni namar la mishmed Rav Ami, v'zimni namar la mishmed Rav Asi. Sometimes he said the name of Rav Ami, sometimes he said the name of Rav Asi. Right? What does it mean in the pasuk when it says in Nahum, what does that mean exactly? Which is shlemim, right? That means exactly, right? If a person sees that his parnasa is mitzumsam, ya'aseh mehen tzedakah, do tzedakah, right? Which means that's the explanation of v'chen no gozu, like to cut it off. Do tzedakah, v'chol sheken k'shem rubin. In other words, if there are more, that he has to do more tzedakah. Meaning, if a person's parnasa is exact, for sure he has to do tzedakah. And all the more so if he has more, that he has to do more tzedakah. What does it mean that goes uvavar? Anybody that cuts off from his properties and does tzedakah, he's going to be saved from geinam. But geinam is vavar. Mashal lishte ruchot. Right? He says over here like this. It's a mashal to two different rechelot, two different sheeps. They were going by in the river, right? One of them, she already had her wool sheared. One of them didn't. The one which was skinny passed through the river. The one which was not skinny, because it had all the wool, right, became all bloated up because too much water. So it was too difficult and it actually drowned in the water. So because of that, same thing with a person. A person, if he has parnasa, exactly, he has to give tzedakah. And if he has more parnasa, he has to give him more tzedakah. You understand? Yeah, fine. Zayin amubet. Yeah, ve'initich. When it says ve'initich, what does it mean ve'initich? Lo anech od. Amar mor zutra. Says mor zutra. Yeah. Afilu ani mipanes min hatzedakah. Even an ani, which is mipanes min hatzedakah, ya'aseh tzedakah. Even an ani, that he's getting panes from tzedakah, he should also give tzedakah. Lo anech od, what does that mean? Right? So he says, because if he's going to give tzedakah when he's an ani, they're not going to show him any more simanei aniyut. That's explanation of the initich. I'm going to afflict you, but I'm not going to afflict you more. Meaning, you were already afflicted because the person was poor. If he's now going to give tzedakah, so then he's going to get even more. And that, a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people, right, they have money, but since they didn't give tzedakah, they wasted their money. So therefore, then all of a sudden they become poor and they don't realize why. But the reason why is because they didn't give tzedakah. If they would have given tzedakah, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu wouldn't have given them, right, such a thing. Okay? Fine. Rabbi Yehuda. 1 second. So he says like this. Rabbi Yehuda says, Merekem la Mizrach, from Merekem to the Mizrach is considered Chutz Haaretz. Okay? And then we said from Akko to the Tzafon and all these things. Okay? So let's start. Lemeimra de Akko litzfona de Israel kaima. Are you going to tell me that Akko is to the north of Israel? Or Minu, we have a contradiction. If you're going from Akko to Kaziv, right? Right, to the right is the east. So you're going to be tameh because of Eretz Amim. Eretz Amim is Chutz Haaretz. So Ptura min Maaser, it's going to be patur for Maaser, because Maaser is only in Eretz Yisrael. Umina Shvit, Shvit is also only in Eretz Yisrael. Ad shivada lecha shi chayevet, until you're going to know that it's going to be chayav. Mismolo lema'anav derech. But if you're going to the left, which is going to be the west, Teorah mishum Eretz Amim. So then it's going to be Taor mishum Eretz Amim chayev Maaser v'Shvit. Ad shivada lecha shi Ptura. Right? So therefore, right, it's coming out that now he's saying like this. Ad Hechal. So now until when is this? Until Kaziv. So Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yossi omer mishum aviv. Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yossi says in the name of his father, right? Ad lavlavo. We're talking about until lavlavo. Here it says, right? Lo matzanu mivor b'rishonim. If lavlavo was right beside it or not. So he's just saying, like, he's just adding on to what's the end of the gvul. Okay, so therefore, since right now, if you're going to turn to the right, you're turning to the east, and to the left, you're turning to the west. So therefore, right, it comes out that the Braita is teaching us that Eretz Yisrael is also considered, right, Tzafona, right, Me'ako. So therefore, it's a stira to this thing, right? Because we just thought that Akko was the north, and then that's it. According to what we just mentioned, it's not true. So Amar Abaye says, you're right. Retzua nafka. There's a Retzuat Eretz, right, which is coming out Tzafona Me'ako, right, on the north of Akko. So he says, so Yikar Rochav Eretz Yisrael is only from the north of Akko, until Akko, right? But the Hevel, right, you have there a picture over there if you see it, right? So he says over here, but the Hevel Haaretz Shemitzafon Akko, right, is also part of Eretz Yisrael, right? But he says, Eno ala Retzuat Eretz Sarah. So it's only a very, very small little tiny piece. Lachen, and therefore he's skid Rav Yehuda Mishnatenu, right? Et Akko Kigula Tzfonit Shel Eretz Yisrael Mishum Sheikar Rochav Haaretz. It's only going to be from there. Okay? So is it normal that the Tana is going to give such a siman? Which means if you're going to tell me now that there's nothing north of Akko, only a Retzuat Sarah, only a small little tiny portion, right? Is that normal then to say that? So says yes. The Pasuk also says it. It says in Pasuk in Shofetim, Vayomeru Inei Chag Hashem, right? B'Shilo Yamim Yamima. Hashem Mitzafon Ole Betel Mizrach Hashem Et Misila Ole. Haola Bibet El Shechema Menegel Lovona. Rav Papa says the Mizracha Shel Mesila. We're talking about there was a little tiny like path between Bet El and Shechem. So you see from here that we're being magdid, even a makom sad, even like a small little place, like a path, we're still going to mention it. And just like it's going to give us siman to know where is the Retzuat Haaretz as well. Okay, fine. That's the Mesila is the next picture, by the way. You have like a little path. Okay. Fine. Now it says like this. Tana Chada, we learned in one Braita, if you're going to bring a get in a boat, so and you're bringing it to Israel, so it's like you brought it in Israel, and therefore you don't have to say because it's kilu and it's Yisrael. The other Braita taught us, it's like you're bringing in Chutzaretz, and if you do have to say so Rabbi Yomi, so basically it's a contradiction. Is it like it's still or not like it's still? Again, you're talking about a boat. Okay, so Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says Rabbi Yirmiyah, Lakashia, it's not a question. Harab Yehuda, Harabbanan. One of them is Rabbi Yehuda, one of them is Rabbanan. The Tram, as we learned in the Mishnah, Afar Chutz Haaretz, Habab Sfina La'aretz. When you have the dirt of Chutz Haaretz, which is coming in to the Sfina in Eretz Yisrael, Chayav b'Maaser or b'Shvit. You're going to be Chayav b'Maaser and in Shvit. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda, Ematai. When do I say that there's going to be an obligation of Maaser and Shvit? Only if the Sefina is touching the bottom of the ground. Okay? That means it's not going to be in deep waters. But if it's not going to be in deep waters, right, it's going to be patur. Right? He says why? Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, the water which is going to be like a chatzitza is stopping the nourishment of the tzomeach from the karka. So it comes out that it's not from Gidulei Eretz Yisrael. So both of the braitot to do with the get are talking about a sfina which is going to be in Aharot Eretz Yisrael, right? But it's not going to be Gosheshe Bakarka. So the first braita that says that the din get is like the din of Eretz Yisrael, it's like the Yabasha is talking about, right, that it's going to be on mamash like on the karka. And the other one, it's above the karka. Okay? Fine. So Abaye now comes and he says, Ha veha, really both braitot, is Rabbi Yehuda. They're both the same person, of Rabbi Yehuda. And it's not a question. Right? Kan bizman she'asfina gosheshet. Kan bisfina, right? Bizman she'asfina gosheshet. Which means, what do we just say? We just said beforehand, one second. So the Rabbi Yirmiyah, before he just said that there's not going to be a contradiction between the two different braitas, because again, there was Tana Chadan and Tana Idach. Yeah, there are two different braitas. So he wants to say that one of them is Rabbi Yehuda, and one of them is Rabbanan. According to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, they're talking about the Na'arot Eretz Yisrael, and the other one is Shitat HaChachamim, which argue on it, because the Mishnah brought down on Chala, that Afar Chutz Haaretz, which is coming in a Sfina to Eretz Yisrael, is Chayav Ma'aser V'Shvit, which means that according to Shitat HaChachamim, it's always going to be considered, the din of Eretz Yisrael, the Naharot Eretz Yisrael is like Eretz Yisrael. Doesn't matter how the boat is, I don't care. It's always going to be like considered like Eretz Yisrael. But Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, no, there's a difference whether it's going to be Sfina gosheshet or not sfina gosheshet? That's the first answer, right? Abaye comes and he argues on Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Abaye says, no, really, both rightos are not. One of them is Rabbanan, one of them is Rabbi Yehuda. Both of them are Rabbi Yehuda, right? One of them is talking about Bizman Sfina gosheshet, and one of them is talking about Bizman She'ena Sfina gosheshet. Amar Bizera, says Bizera, Atzitz Nakuv, Hamunach al Gabea Yitedot. When we're talking about an Atzitz Nakuv, which is going to be placed on top of the pegs, okay? So remember, an atzitz nakuv means you have like a flower pot, but it's got a hole in it. That's what it means nakuv, nekev, right? A hole. So you've got, yes, on the bottom. Okay, so you've got an atzitz nakuv, which is placed upon pegs in Eretz Yisrael. But there's going to be avid, there's going to be air in between the atzitz and the karka. So the question is, right? Is it going to be considered connected to be mechayev in maaser or not? So Baron Machloket of Yehuda Rabbanan. So he says this is obviously going to be a machlok between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan. Why? Just like to do with the sfina, which is eno gosheshe bekarka. It's like the tzitz she'eno munach al gabei karka. So Chachamim come and they say they're going to be chayav in maaser. But just like the sfina doesn't have to be mamash touching the ground, you're always going to be chayav in maaser. The same thing here should be chayav in maaser. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not going to be chayav in maaser. So Amar Rava comes and he says dilma lohi. Really, be'emet, it's not like that. When does Rabbi Yehuda come and he say that the sfina has to be mamash on the ground? Only by sfina. You know why only? You know why we're talking about a sfina? Because a sfina could go away. It's movable, right? But an atzitz doesn't move. It's not a movable object. So no. So we're not going to say such a thing. So Yinami, or if you want, you could answer another answer. Right? That means basically like this. We wanted to make that the same case of an atzitz nakuv, which is in the middle of the air, and does it get its nourishment from the ground or not, is the same machloket applied to the same machloket of Yehuda Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan, you're chayav maaser, just like the sfina is on top of the water and it's not on the bottom, and you're chayav maaser. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, only if it's going to be on the bottom, if it's touching the ground, then it's going to be chayav. Same thing with the atzitz nakuv. Says the Gemara, that's not true. There, it was talking about a sfina. A sfina moves. So by there, it has to be touching the ground according to Rabbi Yehuda. Here, an atzitz never moves, right? Unless you move it, it doesn't move. It doesn't have its two legs. It doesn't move on its own, right? So he comes and he says, however, though, Yinami, or if you want, you can answer another answer. When do the rabbis come and they say that the boat is always going to be chayav, even if it's not going to be on the ground? There's no air in the middle. There's only water. Because the water is like earth. The water is like thick ground. So therefore, it's going to be like that. But at atzitz, which is in the middle of the air, the mafsik avira, you have a pasek. Yeah, you heard, you have a pasek, right? Of what? Of a vid, right? Lo. Then we're not going to say that. So therefore, because of that, we cannot bring a proof to either one of the shitot. Okay? To either one of the shitot.